Today's episode is brought to you by Audible.com, where you can get a free trial and a free audiobook at audibletrial.com/I don't even own a television. You should check it out. 2, 1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, howdy. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I'm your host, J.W. Friedman, and today here with me is Chris Collision.
Howdy.
And we are talking about a book called Necroscope. This is also the 20th episode spectacular, which means it's a normal episode, but it's the 20th one.
Necroscope. 20th episode.
$10 for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. All right, so yes, Chris is here with me. He had recommended this book a while ago. We actually tracked an episode of this about a month and a half ago, and it got lost. Probably due to interference from psychic vampires.
As we'll see, espionage, that's
yes.
espionage, is a very real thing, a very real concern. I know I'm worried.
Yeah, definitely. When you're talking about the supernatural, crazy things can happen. So, just so people aren't in the dark of what we're yammering about here, I think let's start off with a plot in 60 seconds.
Oh, dear God.
Where you will attempt to summarize the plot of this book in 60 seconds. And probably within 30, the audience will know why you just said, oh, dear God. So, if you're ready, let's begin.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
Now.
This is it, my time to shine. Okay, scene, the Cold War. As you'll remember, the two main players in the Cold War were, of course, the USSR and England. And mostly what was at stake in the Cold War was who was going to get their psychic power arsenal sufficiently stocked and deployed.
Of course.
Of course. Okay, so the main players on the bad guy side, there's a gentleman named Boris Dragosani, who is not a necroscope. That is, he does not talk to the dead. He's a necromancer. He tortures and interrogates the dead in all kinds of gross and disgusting and well-described ways. He has a boss and some other shit, but that doesn't matter. Eventually, he decides he'd like to become a vampire, and so he starts talking to the sort of dead, sort of undead Tibor Ferenczi, and trying to get powers from him, and there's a lot of back and forth and backstabbing between them.
Okay, so we're out of time here.
Jesus Christ.
But I think we should keep going because otherwise none of this will make any sense. So bonus round.
Woo! Jesus. Okay, so that's the bad guys. The good guys are ably represented by one Harry Keogh, who's a young orphan named Harry at an English boarding school who eventually wakes up one day and he can talk to dead people.
Yes, and he wears glasses and is raised by his aunt and uncle. Yeah. I'm not saying J.K. Rowling was influenced by Necroscope because that would be crazy, but the similarities are pretty apparent. And this book is much older than Harry Potter. Otherwise, I would say that Brian Lumley, our author in question, was doing some straight jacking.
I mean, it is vampiric, so the suspicion of biting is always there. But
oh!
Hey-oh! Yes.
Okay, so sorry. Continue. I think we're way past 60 seconds, but
yeah.
we'll just continue the summary because this book is fucking crazy. So.
There's an incredible amount of plot for a book that, as you're reading it, feels like it's just exposition. At the same time, there's all this plot, but it's not clear that anything's ever happening. Anyway, Harry Keogh's at this boarding school. He's kind of a fuck up. He's kind of a dreamer. His best friend is the token jock at the school who bails him out of exactly one fist fight and then disappears, never to be heard from again. Harry at some point just discovers that he can talk to the dead. Of course, the first guy he talks to is a geometry teacher who died and has been doing nothing but thinking really fucking hard about geometry for like 40 years, and he's got formulae that you haven't even heard of.
Yeah, and so basically, Harry develops the magical power to be good at school.
That's nicely put.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exactly what you would do if you realized you could talk to the dead.
I'd definitely be like, help me get better at math.
It's got to happen. Anyway, eventually Harry kind of comes to the attention of the KGB leader Gregor Borowitz. I think his big power is that he can sense people with powers.
Yes.
And it's clear that this ability to talk to the dead is going to be very, very crucial. Boris Dragosani, which is just so fucking fun to say, is
and subtle, too.
so
You would
subtle.
never guess a guy named Dragosani is evil. So.
Yeah, it's... I mean, you have to do a lot of reading between the lines with a book like this.
Yeah, for sure. It's complicated.
Fuck. So Dragosani is dispatched to kill Harry Keogh. Oh, no, he's not even dispatched to kill Harry Keogh. He's dispatched to kill the leader of the British intelligence espionage division.
ESP in capital letters at the lead of espionage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, basically what you have here is a Cold War intelligence battle between psychic vampires and British agents that can talk to the dead. There's some Russians that can talk to the dead, too. It's kind of a psychic arms race, we'll say.
I think that's exactly right. Psychic arms race. Sort of... I can't say James Bond, but I can say Tom Clancy.
Yeah.
It's very concerned with the sort of the mechanics of everything. We'll get to this later, but everything in this book is described to a T. And I don't mean described well, I mean described at length.
So can we call this the hunt for Red Schlocktober?
Hey-oh!
Oh, gosh. Dueling bad puns happening today.
Always.
Yeah.
I also talk to the dead and mostly just pick their brains for shitty puns. So
Henny Youngman is speaking to you from the grave.
take my vampire novel, please.
Oh, God. We're going there. Yeah, so the book goes on and on and on, but that's pretty much, I'd say, what you need to know, except for the fact that the spirit that Mr. Dragosani is in contact with eventually kind of takes him over. And,
Boy, does he.
Yeah. And then there's some other shit about Harry's stepdad is actually a KGB agent that wants to kill him and yada yada and yeah, blah, blah, blah. But the important things to know is that there are evil vampires and good psychics and a bunch of weird intrigue shit that sucks. So
I think that's described perfectly, but let's not forget terrifying set. No, let's not get into that yet.
yeah, we'll be talking about that plenty later. There's some very weird sex scenes in this book, but that's a discussion unto itself, so we're going to hold that one back for a while.
Yeah, one thing that probably bears mentioning about the plot is that while Harry is your nominal main character and he's the one you're following through half of it, he doesn't do anything in particular. 90% of the actual movement of the plot is various bad guys backstabbing or plotting or trying to fuck each other over.
This is true. Harry kind of exists as an exposition machine in a lot of ways, in that he's always kind of saying what you're wondering. In kind of the hallmark of a bad science fiction novel, like he pretty much exists just to tell you what's going on, and it's pretty annoying.
Yeah, he's the guy who needs to have everything explained to him, or the guy who's, well, clearly what's going on here is,
Yeah, exactly.
very sub Star Trek level.
Yeah, totally. Like, Harry wondered what was going on. What was going on was this.
Yeah. Harry wondered what was going on. What's going on? Harry asked.
Yeah.
Well, Harry, I'm glad you asked what's going on. His boss, Alec Kyle, said gruffly in a voice marked by silk-cut cigarettes. He paused and drank coffee from his blue and white chipped mug that his aunt had given him on a trip to the seaside some years before.
This is exactly what reading this book is like. Yeah, it's like having someone explain a comic book to you. Like,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
yeah.
Just as a digression, before we really knew what podcasts were, one of my oldest buddies and I really did kind of want to do a radio show that was us just describing the comics page in the paper that day in like a very slow and kind of deadpan way. Like, okay, so in the first panel, Kathy has a bikini.
And in the second panel, she's like, ack.
Yeah.
And then Garfield eats lasagna.
Oh, that's such good radio.
It is. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe you get from this, is somebody telling you what's happening panel by panel, except there's no comic it's based on. There's no hilarious punchline at the end. It's the whole book is kind of a hilarious punchline in a way. But
This isn't a gag strip, but you'll be gagging on it.
oh God, yeah, exactly. So
I'm not going to have any more coffee. Don't worry.
okay, good. I'm drinking beer. That was a fake burp. So yeah, I found the espionage element of this really interesting. I should say espionage with the capital ESP, because apparently in the future, weapons don't matter anymore, and what really matters is being able to talk to dead people that can tell you how to do math.
Duh. I mean, when you say it like that, you start to wonder how a book so brilliant even needed to be written. But, sometimes you just need the really obvious truths laid out in a clear and comprehensible manner.
That's true.
It's also funny that you mentioned in the future, because this book, I think, came out in maybe 79, and mostly is set in like the late 60s through the time it came out. So it was hyper modern at the time.
It's alternate history then.
Very.
So like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
Because then we're just going to have to wonder, could the vampires in this beat up Abraham Lincoln, or is his like mighty axe swinging sufficient to take them down?
Pride and Prejudice with zombies. All right, sorry.
What was the one? There was one other that just the cover of it was the one I liked the best. I think it had this sea monster or something in it, but I don't know.
Little Zombie House on the Prairie, perhaps?
Maybe no. It was definitely like a sea monster of some kind. Okay, that's copyright J.W. Friedman.
Don't steal my idea. I've got a great young adult novel in the works.
Please look forward to it.
Necroscope, on the other hand, definitely not a young adult novel.
Although I will say, I first read this in high school. It was given to me or recommended to me by a friend of mine named Jen, who we all called Satan because she likes to be called Satan.
Awesome.
She was a terrific great artist, hampered only by the fact that she could kind of only draw animals at that time. But she could draw you like a drooling wolf's head or a dragon or something that would fucking look killer on your notebook.
Or the side of your conversion van.
If only we'd had conversion vans, my friend. But she recommended it to me and was like, hey, you might like this. It's a book. It's kind of gory. And I remember reading it and basically agreeing with that. So I guess I was less bothered at 15 or 16 by plots that I can, obviously, as an older man, no longer fucking follow to save my life.
Yeah, no, I remember having a capacity to understand things like this when I was younger, and maybe it's just that I have more free space in my brain. I'm not sure.
or maybe just things that are obviously like, wait, what? Moments to us now as, handsome, brilliant men with lots of experience in the world, just don't register as problematic at all.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it kind of goes back to, it's the Piers Anthony effect, I feel like, where you're not as critical of these kind of issues when you're a kid. Then when you grow up and read it again, you're like, what the fuck was I thinking?
I was actually just thinking about the Spell for Chameleon episode, because like I literally grew up on those books. And so that one was quite an eye opener.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. There's stuff you go back and you read from your childhood and it kind of scares you. I have a feeling this would be one of those books, definitely.
Luckily, like, I can't remember really liking it. It didn't change my life or anything. It did have an amazing cover with this great, like, bat, dragon, snake, skull thing. So I liked that a lot. And, then and now, I'm not necessarily averse to a book about psychic vampires against psychic James Bonds. There, yeah. I said it.
Yep, that's what it is. The MI6 features prominently. But no one drinks martinis, they drink blood.
And nobody's got a cool car.
Yeah, that's true. No Aston Martins in this book. So I guess maybe more what it is then. It's not a young adult novel, but it's kind of in that Stephen King vein where it's a quote-unquote adult novel where probably the largest portion of the audience is boys aged 13 to 14.
I think that's exactly correct. And if young adult novel means something like deeply adolescent sensibility, that's what this book is.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like reading. Like, I don't know. I imagine that if I was like 15 or 16 years old and I had any sort of, stick-to-itiveness to write a novel, it would have been similar to this, because so much of it is like, yeah, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if there were fucking monsters and guys that could tell the future by tearing guts out of things?
And they were spies?
All right, well, I spy, by looking at my timestamp here, that we need to go to a break. So when we come back, we're going to talk about some weird sex. So stay tuned.
You're alone. The night is dark. You feel fear. You're lost, cold, and confused. Uttering prayers, afraid of a beast that stalked the earth. You're praying to Jesus across the work. I've seen you type before. You read all the laws.
Okay, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. I am your host, J.W. Friedman, and with me again is Chris Collision.
Hey.
And we're talking about Necroscope by Brian Lumley, a fantastic British writer who loves vampires, but who doesn't. So I guess a thing to talk about here, before we get into the sexy parts, is the gore in this book, which is way over the top, like Stephen King times 10. You could tell that this dude takes great pride in writing things that he thinks are going to shock and horrify you.
That is a stone cold fact, as stony and cold as the grave.
Exactly. Sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, as I said in the previous segment, my friend Satan, who recommended the book, did it on the basis that this is gory.
My friend Satan is actually the name of my pop punk band too. We're subversive. So anyway, the way the book opens I found really interesting, because when we first are introduced to the book, we're introduced to, I believe, is it Gregor that's the necromancer?
Yes.
Okay, so Gregor opens up the book by essentially learning the secrets of a double agent who's conspiring against the KGB, and the way he does it is the guy's dead, and then he basically cuts him open, grabs all of his organs, starts dancing around with them, listening to them, and, holding the heart up to his ears, doing a little dance around a room with his brain and stuff. And this gives him the ability to know the man's secrets after he's dead.
Right.
So thus he exposes a conspiracy and gets promoted and becomes big badass. But this is after about literally 15 pages of just describing the viscera of a disembowelment.
And it's kind of amazing. And definitely lets you know what book you're reading. Yeah, I always kind of like a book or a movie or a whatever that just opens with its extremity.
Yeah, I agree.
But what's amazing about it is that it sort of reveals a lot about Brian Lumley's perspectives on things, because it's told. We got a bulldog in the house.
Hey, bulldog. What's up?
My favorite Beatles song, actually.
Hey, bulldog?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like Bulldog Skin by Guided by Voices.
Another fine Bulldog song.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Patented digression.
Yeah. Does Rush have a song about bulldogs? I haven't mentioned Rush in a long time.
To the pause button.
Bytor and the Bulldog.
A++ would listen again.
Anyway.
So all of that you just described is exactly right, but I think what bears mentioning is that it's all told from the point of view of three observers. One of them is Boris Dragosani's boss, Gregor Borowitz, and then two of them are sort of Dragosani's rivals to be Borowitz's number two, right? And they're all watching, and it's kind of, they're watching the morgue basically, but it's kind of like an interrogation room. If you're a big SVU fan, you can picture that very clearly.
It's the interrogation room. Sorry, that was really bad. I was trying to do an Ice-T impression. It didn't work. I thought the lisp would sell it, but my poor impersonation skills shit the bed. Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But so these guys are watching, and like two of them are vomiting, and the boss is ashing cigarettes everywhere, which is described over and over again for no reason that I can understand.
This guy loves to talk about smoking, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. And the setup to it is that Dragosani is completely naked, lying with this naked, cut open man, but it says twice, maybe three times in this multiple pages that there was nothing, I tell you, remotely homosexual going on.
Yeah, I love that. It talks about how he was freshly shaved and clean, and
he had shit twice and enemed once. I'm not making that up. I swear to God that's in there.
That is in the book. That's part of his preparation, and it talks about how he's naked and nuzzling on the guy, but then you're explicitly reassured. Yeah, there's nothing gay about this. It's
one thing.
Like 15 pages of no homo.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it sticks in our heads because it was just such a precise description of how we prepared to do this podcast.
Yeah. I love nuzzling with you.
I know all your secrets.
But yeah, okay, so this is probably a good transition into one of the strangest parts of this book, which is the quote-unquote sex scenes, which happen about 3 times.
It's actually more than that. As I was flipping through it on the way over, I found a couple that I had either, let's be honest, forgotten or more likely suppressed.
Yeah.
Because it goes ugly in a hurry. The no homo thing is pervasive.
Yeah.
That is all over this book. And the first several sex scenes are basically acts of voyeurism. There'll be a couple of adults doing something and a child watching, and you're watching from the child's point of view, and the child is fascinated and horrified at rather off-putting length. Like, I think the first one is Harry watching 2 teachers of his on a field trip get it on the beach.
That's true, yeah. And it's described in a very awkward way from the wonder of youth.
From the wonder of youth. And I just want to say this real quick before I look it up. In my notes on this, my keyword is snake.
Yeah. And you'll understand why in a second, because this is really a strange part of the book. We're talking about, essentially, I think we're supposed to be experiencing a child's sexual awakening from his own perspective. But the way it happens is really strange, and the stuff that's supposedly going through his mind probably reveals a lot more about Brian Lumley than he thought when he was writing this book. There's definitely kind of a tendency throughout where you feel like you're kind of learning about someone's secrets without their knowledge, which is very strange considering this is a novel written by a person. So, yeah. Anyway.
All right, so again, this is a 15-year-old boy. The hero of the novel. From beyond the dunes, far off down the beach, Harry could hear the kids shouting and laughing where they swam and splashed in one of the big tidal pools. The sun burned the back of his neck and ears, where he lay perfectly still, his chin in the palms of his hands. Sand fleas jumped only inches from his face, but but he allowed nothing to distract him. His eyes remained riveted on the sexual activity of the lovers in their reed bower. At first, she seemed to be fighting Sargent, trying to push his hands away, but at the same time, she unbuttoned her blouse so that her breasts jutted up naked in the sunlight, their pointed tips unbelievably brown.
Pointed tips.
Harry sensed a sort of panic in her, reflected in his own suddenly pounding blood. It was as if she was hypnotized, with Sargent's penis a snake where it swayed over her belly, mesmerized into lifting her bottom so that her lover could remove her panties, and into bending her knees and parting her legs. In there, she was dark as night, as if she wore a smaller pair of black knickers under her white ones.
Nothing is sexier than panties and knickers in the same paragraph.
Black, yes.
Yeah.
And then pink, where she put her hands under her thighs to open herself for Sargent. And I'm going to go 2 more sentences just because it's too late to stop now.
This is getting awkward,
and
man.
I'm sorry. Harry caught a glimpse of her. Pink, white, curving, dark, brown. But that was all. Climbing between her legs, his incredible penis disappearing into her in a moment.
That penis is incredible!
I mean...
I like just the rainbow of colors, too.
A rainbow of colors. I also kind of like, he caught a glimpse, 7 descriptive words. That was all.
Yeah, he caught a glimpse. It was red clovers. Oh, no, sorry. I already fucked it up. Green clovers, delicious. Purple rainbows. Yeah, magically delicious.
Actually, I believe they saved the leprechauns for one of the sequels.
Leproscope.
Fuck, I'd read that.
Me too, although, yeah. Yeah, so basically that shit is weird, and there's a lot of that throughout the book.
A lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of very, very detailed descriptions of men's junk and stuff like that, but it's almost always kind of coupled with the old no homo, as we discussed earlier. And it comes across as kind of telling. I mean, I don't know much about Brian Lumley, the individual, and, I just get the feeling that he kind of has some repressed desires, perhaps.
I don't know about the repressed desires. It definitely feels like he had a moment in his youth where he saw 2 adults having sex and was like, holy crap, that guy's got a giant dick. Why don't I have a giant dick?
That does sound about right, actually. And what you end up getting out of this is a lot of very uncomfortable descriptions of people having sex. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I think we've kind of got into this in detail. I don't really want to make things get any more purple, but
I think that's fair. I do want to say it's not like we are importing this into the book. Like, a major moment of the book is the major bad guy. It turns out is extremely sexually frustrated and basically has to sell his soul to the big vampire dude. So the main necromancer has to kind of sell his soul to the big vampire dude so that he can have a successful first sexual encounter.
Yes.
Like, that's a plot point. We didn't make that up.
No, yeah. I mean, it's hard to make anything up that would be weirder than the sex stuff in this book. Yeah. I've been racking my brain and, there's a lot of stuff that could be more horrifying, but this is just weird. Like, very weird. I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like the Diary of a Peeping Tom in some ways. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I just read sticks in my head so much because it reads like every serial killer aura thing,
That's true.
Like this is the hero of the book, and he's sitting there like peeping on his teachers having a quickie.
Yeah, it would be like the backstory of an axe murderer in a horror movie, kind of.
Yeah, not the guy who's going to save the day against the Soviet vampires.
Not Harry Potter.
Not Harry. Yeah, Harry Potter never pulled this shit, man.
Yeah. Well, maybe, but it was never in the eye of the reader for sure. You had to go to
the internet.
Yeah, fanfiction.net for your share of that. Which, by the way, I definitely recommend as an excellent resource for grossing yourself out.
Very true. Speaking of fan fiction, this is possibly relevant. I did a tiny bit of research into Brian Lumley, and I believe that he really got his start writing Lovecraft mythos stuff. And this might have been his first, his own world book. So I think he'd been writing Lovecrafty stuff, which Necronomicon, the old elder gods, stuff, and
lots of consonants in a row with apostrophes.
Cthulhu Fatang. Yeah. Which is in effect fanfic, but for strange reasons legally it does not count as fanfic. People are just allowed to use those materials.
Well, a lot of that is because Lovecraft perpetuated that, himself, in that, like, a lot of his friends after. Okay, digression. But, after the first time he mentioned the Necronomicon and the Mad Arab and stuff, like, a lot of his contemporaries and friends decided, we want to work with that. And he kind of encouraged it. And there actually became this mythos where people believe that the Necronomicon is a real book. Like, you can go into the bookstore and buy a quote-unquote copy of the Necronomicon, which... a completely fictional invention.
Or if you're me in high school, you can go to the bookstore in the mall with your friend Satan and flip through it because you don't actually have the money to buy it.
That's true. But the cover is not made of human flesh, which, it doesn't work.
Fucking B. Daltons.
B. Dalton. I think I got some origami books from there.
Narrow-casted mall store joke.
Hey, you guys remember Camelot Music?
Oh.
They had a 10-cent tape bin. All right, anyway. The writing style of this book I found particularly interesting. I say that all the time. The writing style was really cool because Brian Lumley seems just so incredibly excited to write this book that he couldn't stop himself from putting exclamation marks at the end of every piece of dialogue.
That is very true. He couldn't stop himself. Like, I'm the M-dashest motherfucker ever.
That's true.
Possibly second to Brian Lumley. Every transition is an M dash or an ellipsis into the second half, which ends with an exclamation point. Like
this, I didn't do the counting because this would be really difficult, but I have a feeling there are a ton of one-sentence paragraphs in this book because there's so much stuff that's interrupted by M dashes and semicolons. And
I think that's very true, but one thing that you need to know is that this is not like a sports writer one-sentence paragraph where it's like 7 words long.
Yeah.
This is a 200-word sentence.
Yeah, it's just, conjuncted to hell,
yes.
I guess. If I was an editor, which I'm not... I would definitely give this guy a note that's like, a lot of this could be multiple sentences.
Or gently he suggested, left the fuck out.
That's true, too.
There's a thing that I could look up if there's interest, but there's a thing at the very beginning where Alec Kyle, who's a spy that you don't need to care about, walks into his office, and there's this
oh god, yes,
there's this lengthy description of him like walking through the lobby, walking to the elevator, swiping his card through the card reader. It goes swiftly and smoothly.
Like smoothly swiped his card through the card reader.
Great. I was worried, your average shitty book would just say he swiped his card through the reader, or maybe just skip the whole how did he get to his office question entirely. But no, not this book. This book knows that you're not going to buy a scene that opens with a man in an office. Fuck that. Who is this man?
How did he get there?
How did he get there? How did it go while he was getting there?
Yeah, definitely.
So I would say two things about the style of this book. One is just in its proliferation of pointless detail. It feels a little bit like a video game that builds in lore.
Yes.
Right? So you're exploring and you find something and you click on it and it gives you some dumb information, right? And it feels like this is almost like a walkthrough of a video game that contains all the lore.
Yeah, like Quest 1, go to the library and read these things, which... Yeah, exactly.
The other way it reads, and I think you were hinting at this earlier, it really reads like a guy who's just super excited to be writing this book. It's like a guy at his desk. He's on his 7th coffee of the day, and he's just saying yes to himself.
I mean, as I was reading this, I think the dialogue kind of falls into a style that I'd refer to as Archie Comics-esque, because there are no statements that end with a period. Everything's a question or an exclamation. And it just, if you actually read it in the voice you're intended to, it's a bunch of people being like, oh my gosh, yes! Like, what's going on? Like, kind of speed racery, I guess, in a way.
Like, why are these people yelling at each other all the time?
Yeah. All right, but anyway, we're going to go to a break here. We're going to come back, do some dramatic readings and other things, so please stay tuned, and we won't drink your blood psychically.
Or will we?
Hey everybody, are you looking for books you don't have to read? Well, why not visit audible.com, home to over 30,000 audiobooks that you can listen to on any digital device of your choosing. They've got a lot of great stuff, and right now you can get a free trial at audibletrial.com/I-don't-even-own-a-television. This also includes a free audiobook download that's yours to keep forever and ever and ever. So, check it out, help me out, fill your mind with goodness. Thanks.
Please tell me you recorded you saying that.
I wish I did. Here, let's roll.
Yes.
Okay. All right, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. I am J.W. Friedman. With me is Chris Collision.
Hey.
And we're talking about Necroscope by Brian Lumley, which by now I'm sure you totally want to read.
Fuck yeah. I mean, I want to apologize for ruining your day by forcing you to press pause on this podcast, run, not walk, to the nearest bookstore and just rip all the Lumley you can off the shelves.
It's great stuff. Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about this book and about the wonders of it and its literary merits. But now I think it's time to kind of get down and dirty, and we're going to do some dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound recorded. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
Okay, so in dramatic readings, we take segments of a book and we make them sound way more serious and profound than they are. And in this case, that's not hard.
Oh, I was going to go the other way. I was going to say with a book of this depth and profundity, it's almost impossible not to feel like you're trivializing it. You're not doing it justice.
Yeah, maybe that's true. But anyway, would you like to kick us off here?
I think I will. I've chosen for my selection a little slice of gore.
Okay, well, let's begin.
So get this up in your ears.
Make sure to adjust your headphones tightly and crank up the volume, especially if you're on the bus and you might disturb the people around you.
Pull your vehicle to the side of the road.
Yeah.
The gloomy glade of the tomb and the shattered corpse spread in a welter of feathers and guts and limbs wrenched from their sockets. And a thin and leprous tentacle thrusting upward through the scummy earth, pushing aside soil, pine needles, clots of lichen and chips of stone. Leprous, yes, and composed of something other than flesh, but with scarlet veins pulsing. And then, a crimson eye forming in its tip and avidly scanning the ground. The eye dissolving away and a reptilian mouth and jaws taking its place, so that now the tentacle seemed a blind, smooth, mottled snake. A snake whose forked scarlet tongue flickered over the pitiful remains, whose fangs gleamed white and needle-sharp, and whose jaws chomped slaveringly until every last morsel was devoured. Then the swift withdrawal and the spell broken as the pulsating, sickening member was sucked back down out of sight into the naked earth.
So can we say now that that's kind of indistinguishable with Lumley's descriptions of sex?
Wait, that wasn't sex?
No, I don't think so.
Shit, I gotta read this thing again.
There's a lot of stuff about pulsating red members for a non-sex scene.
Yeah, just to be clear, that was not a sex scene. That was the big bad vampire accepting he's still trapped in his tomb, accepting a tribute from Boris Dragosani. The tribute was, I think, in this case, a dead pig or a chicken or some shit.
Yeah, he had to bring a lot of dead stuff out there in service of this demon that would grant him vampire powers.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to do my dramatic reading now. And in this case, this is Harry. He's fallen asleep in class. And he's having a vision of his dead mother who drowned in ice. This takes place from her perspective. So, here we go. Fight the current. Grasp at the hands. Kick against the river's rush. Fight! Fight! Fight for Harry. There, you've got the hands. Grip tight. Hold on. Try to lift your head up through the hole and breathe. Breathe. But the hands are pushing you down. Seen through the water, the face wobbles, shifting and changing. The trembly jelly lips turn up at their corners. They smile or grimace. You hang on. You scream, and water rushes in to replace the escaping air. Cling to the ice. Forget the hands. The cruel hands that continue to hold you down. Just grab at the rim and lift your head. But the hands are there, breaking your grip. They thrust you away under the ice. They murder you. You can't fight the cold and river in the hands. Blackness is roaring down on you, in your lungs, in your head, in your eyes. Stick your long fingernails into the hands, claw at them, tear the flesh from them. The gold ring comes loose, spirals down into the murk and mud. Blood turns the water red, red against the ultimate black of your dying. Blood from the cruel, cruel hands.
Jesus Christ.
I like that a lot.
I want to, first off, apologize. Terrible podcast guest behavior on my part for not being able to not laugh.
Oh, it's good stuff. Even if you were reading this silently in your head, it's pretty laughable. So.
Fact. The other thing is I want to say, holy shit, that's my favorite Metallica song in like 15 years.
Grip for the hands.
The ultimate black of your death.
I used to call that Hetfielding when you'd be like, I had a good day today.
Yeah. Side point, the James Hetfield soundboard is, to the best of my knowledge, the pinnacle of human achievement to date.
I didn't know this existed, but like if at least half of it is at rah, then I'll be disappointed.
It is almost all rah.
Awesome.
I also want to say I was at a screening of Some Kind of Monster.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
It is simultaneously among the greatest comedies and greatest tragedies I've ever seen.
Nothing says metal like group therapy.
The wonderfully double-edged compliment toward the end, we never could have made Saint Anger without our therapist.
My favorite part in the book is in that movie is when Dave Mustaine shows up and starts crying. But yeah, anyway, so this is a huge digression.
But I want to say just one last thing about Some Kind of Monster.
Look, there's always room for Metallica on this podcast because we're Hessian.
Yeah. I happen to be at a screening of Some Kind of Monster, and there's this big dramatic moment where Hetfield stands up and storms out of a therapy session, and it goes to slow-mo as he walks through the door and kind of slams it behind him. And a guy in the theater did a perfect no at that moment. And it killed.
That's great. I remember going to see Mom and Dad Save the World when I was a teenager, and about 5 minutes into the movie, the projector cut out and went dark, and my friend yelled, "Feel good movie of the summer!" It was one of the best moments of my life. So.
This has been Movie Talk with your hosts, Jay and Collision.
Because there's not enough podcasts about movies already. But anyway, okay, so let's go into another segment here. Previously, we didn't have a song for this, but I think we're going to have a song now. So this is Russian Roulette.
Russian roulette, Russian roulette, Russian roulette, not actually Russian.
Russian roulette. It could not be more fitting for a book with so many Soviets.
That's true. So basically what happens in this is we're going to flip through pages, or in this case, I believe we both have e-reader books, so we're going to tap through pages. And at the go sign, we will stop and just read a random sentence or paragraph. So, would you like to go first, or should I?
I'm tapping away.
Okay, so tap, 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 tap. Stop.
I have stopped.
Okay, let's do it.
But that's very naughty of you, Boris. She'd girlishly pretended to protest, at the same time finding the light switch. And momentarily dazzled, there she had stood, quite naked, where she'd forced the bed back from the open door, and smiling a little drunkenly at him, which had the effect of making her look utterly stupid and disgusting, she'd moved towards him and reached out her arms. I'm gonna stop reading there, but I want you to know that 2 sentences later, that's revealed to be his aunt who's trying to seduce him.
Oh, that's very naughty.
Blech.
Okay, so I'm gonna tap now. We're
right.
doing it. Tap, 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 tap.
Holy shit, this guy's tapping like Eddie Van Halen.
Check out my arpeggios.
All right, stop.
Okay. Why did these both just end up to be sexy? Okay, yeah, I found one that's good here. Brenda was disappointed. A story, that's all. On the other hand, perhaps she had been wrong to neglect the writing as the source of his moodiness. Perhaps he was that way because there was no talk to. No one to talk to. Wow. Everyone knew that he was precocious. His writing was brilliant, the work of a mature man. Was that it? Was it simply that he had too much bottled inside and no way to let it out? I'd guess yes.
Rarely do you get a book with an author writing from the point of view of another author saying, am I just too good at writing?
Yeah.
Is that really the source of all my problems?
It probably is. Yeah, anyway.
You guys are going to love my concept album about a guy who just shreds too fucking hard on guitar.
So, people don't understand me in this post-apocalyptic future where music is against the law.
Willy, 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 willy.
All right, so let's move on. Another little segment here. This is called What is Your Fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
Okay, we're going to change it up a little bit here, and we're going to alternate What is Your Fave, because in the span, since we recorded the original episode until now, I kind of forgot what my question was. So I'm going to start out with one, and then Mr. Collision here is going to give me a question that I will answer. So, wow, that's fun and new.
Yeah.
So-
Always innovating.
Yes.
And by that I mean hashtag innovating. From right here in the heart of the Bay Area.
A mechanical bull. Sorry, that was really in-jokey.
Whoa.
Yeah. Silicon Valley, baby. That's all we do. We innovate. Here's a cup that tells you what you're drinking. All right, sorry.
What? Fuck.
All right, so, Chris,
Yep.
what is your fave supernatural power that's described in this book?
Oh, shit. I mean, there's so many. There's the ability to kill a guy by looking at him. Although apparently you have to like do a rap squat and bulge out your eyes to pull it off.
It's the penance stare, but the low budget version.
That sound you just heard in the distance was my mind fucking blowing. Yeah, talking to the dead is what? Yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna say it's the death stare. Like I think the death stare is probably just the coolest thing anybody does in this book.
I agree. I will go on record as saying that I agree. He actually has the only power, this man who could kill people by looking in them in their eye, that seems to have any actual real world application as an espionage intrigue man. So,
although we should double back for a second and point out, so like Harry, the titular Necroscope, can talk to the dead, and he gets a lot of superpowers from this ability. So at one point he spends like 15 pages talking to Mobius. I'm just going to say it like that because it's fun to say it like that. Inventor of the famous strip with only one side and one edge.
not a Kathy comic strip, as alluded to earlier.
Not a Kathy comic strip.
A Catholic comic strip. That's a chick track. All right. Anyway, sorry.
More chick track. And he talks to him for like 15 pages about like having mastered time and space. And then at a time where it becomes really important for Harry to be able to teleport, he basically magically learns the ability to teleport. So he gets superpowers from talking to the dead.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty good, too. It's kind of unlimited in a way.
Yeah, he does. I mean, because he by the end of the book, he's the master of time and space.
It's true. Okay, so let's flip this on its head. You've got a question for me.
I do. And this is... anyway, what is your favorite betrayal of a bad guy by another bad guy?
Oh, well, this is easy for me.
What?
Yeah, this is at the beginning of the book. After...
I thought this was going to be a toughie.
No.
Because it's like 60% of the book.
Yeah. No, this is easy for me. It's at the beginning of the book after Boris does all his necromancing activity. And, the other guys are in the control room puking into trash cans and stuff. It's revealed once he reads the organs of the dead man that one of the guys in the control room is actually involved in a crazy plot to overthrow the current director of the KGB. So immediately after necromancing, yeah, he just shoots the dude. These powers rule.
Yes. I have the power of having a revolver in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely my favorite there.
Awesome.
So anyway, I think it's probably close to time for us to get out. So before we do, I'm just curious if you would recommend this book at all, be it ironically, earnestly, or if you would not.
That's a little bit tough for me. We didn't really get into it, but in addition to some of the kind of distasteful sex, just creepiness, and the actually quite awesome gore, there's some racial politics that just make it kind of impossible for me to tell anybody that they should get into this. That said, I genuinely feel like at this point, whether or not you're interested in reading this book. Like, if you're at all interested in reading a Tom Clancy-ish Cold War tale about nasty Soviet vampires fighting heroic-ish English super spies, like, whether or not that's a book you want to read. So
yeah, I definitely agree with you here. I think it's worth warning people. This is like a 700-page monstrosity too. This is not a short book.
Although, and I will say that we both think that this is basically a terribly written book in a lot of ways, but we also both had the experience of, the pages are going by.
Yeah, that's very true. I had fun reading this book. I wouldn't say it's good, but I had fun reading it. I don't know if I'd recommend it just based solely on the length. In that, if you're not already thinking fuck yeah, vampires versus psychics in fucking espionage, you're probably not going to like this, and I couldn't say, I'll read this for a belly laugh, because it's a huge time investment. But if that sounds like something that's kind of interesting to you, I would say go ahead and read it, because it's not unfun to read, it's just bad, but in an entertaining way.
And if you can, I mean, I know we both read it on the ebook that shall not say its name format, but if you can, I guarantee you can find this at the closest used bookstore to your house.
Oh, for sure.
And there's 11 billion books in the series. You can kind of hop on anywhere. They have great covers. I really can't stress that enough. Suitable for your notebook, your backpack, your van.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you know a talented airbrush artist, this would be great on the side of your van. So Okay, so before we go here, we've been making fun of this book for a while, and I thought it would be good kind of to end with a more positive note. So I was curious if you could recommend anything to our audience that you've been enjoying lately, book-wise.
I've been reading lots of smarty pants books, but I think for this, I should recommend something a little more in the genre.
Yeah, probably.
I'll just mention two things I happen to have read recently, both of which are infinitely worth your time. One actually being Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
I had never read it. It's pretty great. It's I don't know, very thought-provoking while also working as a very gothic, spooky tale. And I enjoyed it immensely, much more than I expected to, based on Dracula, which I think is among the most boring books ever written.
Agreed.
And then the other thing I would probably recommend is Behold the Man by Michael Moorcock. Michael Moorcock's a big favorite of mine. And this is sort of a time travel tale involving Jesus. And well worth a read. Well worth a read. It's also extremely short, and you can put it down in like 2 days.
Cool.
So,
so I think basically for me, what I would probably recommend here is a compilation of short stories by Thomas Ligotti, and it's called Teatro Grotesco. And he's a guy who's kind of received a lot of shine lately because the writer for True Detective has name dropped him a lot. But what he writes is very kind of eldritch horror, like this weird fiction kind of stuff. So there's a lot of blood and guts and body horror like this book, but it's framed in a much more literary fashion that kind of reminds me of Lovecraft, of course, or maybe Poe. He writes short stories pretty much exclusively, and that collection is really, really good. I think, if you were listening to this and you thought the theme sounded cool, but you didn't actually want to read this book, I can't recommend Ligotti enough because also as a short story writer, it's kind of a quick hit. You can spend half an hour reading a story and put it down and think about it for a long time, and it's good. So check that out. And while you're at it, why not get in touch with me? I don't even own a television at gmail.com. I want to start reading letters on the show, so please write in your letters with your opinions or your questions or your hilarious comments. Wink, wink.
your pornographic fan fiction.
No. No, don't do that. Yeah, and also if you go to idontevenownatelevision.com, you can see links in the little sidebar to our Twitter and the Facebook, and you can join the conversation and be like the fifth person. So anyway, Chris, thanks for coming out.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
How can people stay in touch with you or follow what you're up to?
Like everybody else, everything I do, I plug on Twitter. It's at CF Collision. I warn you, I will annoy the bejesus out of you. Talking about hockey, mezcal, justice, and whatever else happens to cross my addlepated brain.
If people are following me on Twitter, they already have a high tolerance for that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But definitely, yeah, follow Chris. Check him out. He's a funny dude, as you probably already noticed.
Funny dude, failed writer, but, I love Twitter.
So, yeah, thank you, everybody, for sticking around as we talked about psychic vampires and dudes that can tell the future from ripping organs out of dead bodies and, other normal things. This has been I Don't Even Own a Television, and remember, keep reading crap.